my name is Jenna and welcome to my September movie and TV show wrap up. In September, I watched 11 films and 11 TV shows. I was literally going back through my notes going, was that really, did I really watch that in September? So yeah, I watched a lot of film and television this month that I did not expect. So because of that, we're just gonna get started. So as always, we're going to start with the TV shows that I watched. So the first TV show was season 9 of Modern Family. I give this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I am not loving the later seasons as much as I do with the earlier ones, and I think that they were like kind of struggling with the storylines a little bit once the kids all grew up. So the only one left at school now is Lily, and everybody else is in college or working, and so I'm sort of like, oh, it's not, like, it's still good and it's still relevant, but the stories just aren't quite what they were, I guess. Everything is still really, really funny though, so I'm excited to see where the next season takes me. Second TV show I watched was season 12 of Doctor Who. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed season 12 a lot more than I did season 11, but it's still not good. It's still not a good show anymore. The season 12 had a bit more of a coherent storyline, like there was a story thread running throughout the whole season, and I found myself, you know, wanting to watch and wanting to know what was gonna happen next. The companions and Jodie, they are growing on me like this much. They're growing on me a tiny little bit. Not much, but like a little. There were parts of the finale that I was just sitting there like, ooh, that's bad. That's not good. That's not good at all. And then there are other parts that I'm sitting there just like, what is happening? Why? I need to know. So it's not the same show when I fell in love with it. I fell in love with Doctor Who during Matt's era. That's when I fell in love with it. The first Doctor that I saw was Eccleston because my friend convinced me to watch it, and she convinced me to go back to Eccleston and start from the beginning. But my first experience of waiting each week for a new episode was season 7, so it was with Matt. And I loved Matt's Doctor. I think he is, in my opinion, he's the best Doctor. He's my favorite Doctor. And the show is very different from what it is, like what it is now to what it is back then. So I struggle. I really wish they'd stop shoving moral lessons down my throat. Like, I get it. And Doctor Who kind of always did that, but it's never been this, like, I'm shoving it down your throat, and I wish they'd stop. I really wish they'd stop. So the third thing I watched this month was a rewatch, and that was season 6 of Glee. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. The show went downhill really fast. I really, really enjoy season 4. I think season 4 is great, and then season 5, it just takes a dive, and it just is terrible and not good. And then season 6 is not awful, but not great at the same time. Like, the season 6 newbies, for example, they're nice enough and they can sing, but I didn't care about any of them, and I don't know why I should care about any of them, because we were literally introduced to like 7 new characters who then didn't get a storyline. They were literally just there to bump up other people's storylines, so I just didn't see the point of them. The whole season is utterly ridiculous. Like, the whole Sue's Hurt Locker, and then the jigsaw puzzle, and then the wedding, like the whole thing is utterly ridiculous, but I did still cry in that final performance because it does get me every time. I just can't help it. It's beautiful. It's so good. Fourth TV show that I watched was season 1 of Muppets Now. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. When they said they were making like a new Muppets TV show, I got really excited. I was like, oh my god, yes, the Muppets. I love the Muppets. And then I watched the TV show and went, oh, what is this? I do not recommend it in the slightest. It's really not good. It's most of the segments isn't funny. The majority of the show is just Miss Piggy, and she is my least favorite Muppet. So every time she was on screen, I just would groan like, ugh, her again. Literally the only good parts of the show were the science experiments that Beaker and the scientist Muppet did, and Joe from Legal. Joe from Legal was amazing, and I love him so much. I need more stuff from him, but the whole show in itself was pretty bad. And then the 5th TV show that I watched was the first TV show that I pulled out of the tin from last month, and that was season 1 of Frequency, which I actually gave 4 out of 5 stars. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this show. So it's basically just, imagine the Butterfly Effect as a TV show. And that's pretty much what it was. It was literally just every decision that they made in the past, well, every decision they made in the future, which then affected the past, which then affected the future. It just was constantly, I was on my toes. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was so invested in these characters and in their story, and I hate that it got cancelled, but I love that CW made like a little epilogue. I sobbed watching that epilogue. I just needed to know that they were all okay. Oh, it was so good. It was such a good experience. I really, really, really enjoyed watching that show. 6th TV show that I watched was yet another one from the tin, and that was the Frankenstein Chronicles, which I only watched the first season of, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And this one again was so good. I hate that I've like been putting shows off because the two that I picked from the tin were so good. It was really, really compelling with really great characters, and even though looking back on the first season now after knowing what happens in the finale, I look back at it and I'm like, how did I not see that coming? It's so obvious, but apparently it wasn't because I didn't see it coming. So I remember I was trying to do other things at the same time. I was sort of watching the finale and I was like, no, I have to concentrate on what's going on because oh my goodness, what? I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the show. It's set in like old-timey London and it has to do with someone is cutting up bodies and trying to stitch them back together, sort of like Frankenstein. It was brilliant and so well done, and I'm excited to watch season 2. The 7th TV show that I watched this month was Julie and the Phantoms. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I've actually watched it twice now. I did a rewatch only a couple days ago because I'm obsessed, guys. Julie and the Phantoms. Tell your friends. Seriously, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's so freaking good. So the whole thing was super sweet and super fantastic and super adorable, and it's Kenny Ortega. So Kenny Ortega did High School Musical and Descendants and all that fun stuff. So he's created the show. It's based on, I believe it's a Spanish show, Julie and the Phantoms. I'm not sure if it's Spanish or if it's, I think it's Spanish. So it's based on that and it's just so good. I can't. I've been listening to the soundtrack non-stop. It's amazing. I need a second season. I love all of the characters. Reggie has my heart. He is my absolute favorite. But then I also love Luke and Alex and Julie and just all of them, and I love it so much. Also, All Eyes on Me is one of Dirty Candy's songs and it's a total bop and you cannot convince me otherwise. Not to mention the whole show is basically just a D3 reunion, and like I love that because it's got Booby Stewart in it as Willie and he was Jay, and then it's got Cheyenne Jackson as Caleb who was Hades, then it's got Jada Marie who was Cecilia and is now Flynn, and it's just so good. It's such a good show, and they all were actually playing their instruments live and they all could sing, and it just if you haven't watched Julie and the Phantoms and you love like musical stuff and you really enjoyed High School Musical or Descendants or anything Kenny Ortega has done, seriously highly recommend that you watch it. The whole thing just screams Kenny Ortega did this and it's so good. So yeah, I watched that twice because I'm probably gonna watch it again, I'm not gonna lie. AS TV show that I watched was Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous season 1, and I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. So when I started this show, I was sort of like, ooh, this is what you're going with? That's so kiddish, what the heck? And by the time I finished the show, I was like, why would you let children watch something like this? It's a dark show. It's animated, but it's dark, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I loved all the little tie-ins they had to the film, and it was kind of stupid in places, but it was great. And like watching these kids run away from the Indominus Rex. I mean, I thought like the Indominus, you know, there's this moment where the kids end up in a place, and when I figured out where they were, I gasped and was like, no! Like, no, they can't be there. So it was a whole thing, and yeah, I ended up really enjoying it. The characters were kind of annoying, but by the end of the show, they'd all gone through so much and they'd gone through so much together that by the end of it, I was like, I love you guys. I want you all to be okay. Also, I might need someone to make a bumpy plush because I need one. Watch the show, you'll get it. Another TV show that I watched was season 1 of Jessie. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I am enjoying Jessie. It's fun. There's nothing more really to say. It's just cute. It is a little bit sad to see Cameron Boyce so young, obviously knowing that I think Jessie came in 2011, so knowing that he died 9 years later was, no, I think he died last year, didn't he? Wow, knowing that he died 8 years later, that's something. He died when he was 20, so that's a little hard, but the whole show itself, I'm really enjoying it. 10th TV show that I watched was season 1 of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. My friends have been telling me to watch this show for months, and now that with The Mandalorian coming at the end of this month, and knowing that Ahsoka's meant to be in the show and they're going to be referencing things from Clone Wars, so I decided I finally had to sit down and watch The Clone Wars, but I struggled with it a lot. I didn't particularly enjoy season 1. I found it really hard to motivate myself to keep putting it on because it just was very kiddish and I didn't love it. I have started season 2 now, and season 2 is definitely a lot darker, but it's still very kiddish and I'm not like really enjoying the stories. I'm just sort of watching it because of The Mandalorian. And then the last TV show that I watched this month was the ending of The 100, season 7, which is the final season of the show, and I love love The 100. I've loved the show since it first came out in season 1, and I don't know how to rate the final season because for the first maybe 8 episodes of season 7, so unbelievably good. The first 8 episodes, I was always on the edge of my seat and I was just going, oh my god, like this is how you do a final season. This is amazing and fantastic and brilliant, and I really felt like they were gearing up to something incredible and everything. They were setting the stage, and then it just sort of, I don't even really know how to describe it without spoiling things, but it took a turn that I just was not expecting from a show like this. And there's a big chunk of like from episode 8 maybe to episode 14 that I just hated. I did not enjoy anything that happened in any of those episodes. I thought it was really dull, not enjoyable. The characters made some really stupid out of character decisions that they wouldn't have made, in my opinion. Like, knowing these characters and knowing them for 6 years, all of a sudden they're making decisions that I'm just sort of like, that seems really out of character for you. That seems like it's something that you wouldn't do. And the plot just went off the rails. I don't know what they were thinking. And then something happens in episode 13. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but now that I've finished the show, that entire thing was pointless and just was there to make people angry. And it did make people angry. It made me angry. Watching the penultimate episode though, I sobbed a lot because something happens to Maddie that I just wasn't expecting. I was like, And then coming into the final episode, I was sort of like, I don't know how they're gonna wrap everything up in 1 hour. I really don't know how they're gonna do this. And for the first maybe 40 minutes of the finale, I was sobbing. I was so upset. It was so well done. It was brilliant. It was fantastic. And then something happened, and all I'm going to say is little balls of yellow light. For those of you who have seen the show, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. That was the moment when I went, you have lost me and I can't love the show as much as I did now. It changed my entire opinion of the entire show. It was this one little moment right at the finale. So I didn't love the way the show ended. I know there's been a lot of memes going around of like Game of Thrones passing on their mantle of the worst final season to The 100, and honestly, I was giving them the benefit of the doubt, but now that I've seen the final season in full, I totally agree with that. It wasn't a good final season for the show. I'm not giving The 100 a rating because I don't know how to rate it, because I was so disappointed in it. I think one of the things that gets me though is The 100 has always had 13 episodes, and now 3 of the seasons have had 16 episodes, and for me, those 3 seasons are the worst seasons of the show. So I don't think the show should have done 16 episodes for the final season. I think they should have kept it to 13. They would have chucked out all the filler episodes. They would have kept things really on track, and I think it would have been better, but that's just me. Anyway, so that's the 11 TV shows that I watched this month. Now let's quickly move on to the movies because I've already been talking for like 17 minutes. Thank you very much, The 100. First movie that I watched was a rewatch. That was Pitch Perfect, so that was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. Fun fact though, I never wanted to watch Pitch Perfect. I always thought it looked so dumb. I never wanted to watch it, and then I finally did and was like, oh, this is nothing like what I thought it would be, but this is so good. So I thoroughly enjoy it. Jokes are funny, the performances are great, and I cannot even begin to tell you how many times Chloe's "I have nodes" line was quoted back to me when I told people I had vocal nodules. It actually got a bit ridiculous. Second movie that I watched was another rewatch. That was Iron Man. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I always love going back to the start of the MCU. It's just something a lot of fun, and it just really makes you, you go back 12 years and you're like, oh wow, this is where we started, really? And now you look at the MCU and you're just like, damn, things changed fast. Third movie that I watched this month was a new movie, and that was The New Mutants, and I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. I was not expecting much from this film at all, considering it went through absolute developmental and production hell, and the fact that it was set up to have sequels, but then the Disney Fox merger happened, and so now the sequels aren't happening, and like, yeah, it just wasn't a great film. But I had not been to the cinema since January, and I just desperately wanted to go to the movies to see something new, and New Mutants was one of the only films that is actually being released this year. So, thanks America. And I say yes, thanks America, because just saying, a lot of films could still have been released in Australia because our cinemas are open, but whatever. The film just felt like it was trying to be this really intense character study, but failed to actually give us an insight into any of the characters whatsoever. It tried to be a horror film, but it failed at being scary, and it tried to be part of the X-Men franchise, but it failed at that too, because the whole time I was like, when is this set? I thought that the film was set like in the 70s and was meant to be sort of running concurrently with the First Class, Days of Future Past timeline. That's what I thought. And then there's this scene in the film that directly relates the film to Logan, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, but isn't Logan set like 50, 60 years after Days of Future Past? Like, when is this movie set? I don't know. I don't know when it was set. I don't know how it fits into the X-Men franchise, and now I don't ever need to because they're gonna reboot it anyway. Fourth film I watched was a rewatch. That was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I also watched a bunch of behind the scenes stuff for Snow White, so they have all of these extras on Disney Plus, which were a lot of fun to watch and to sort of understand how they came about making Snow White. It was really good. I really enjoyed the Snow White film. I think it's great. I don't remember watching it this month, but it says I did, so we're gonna go with it. Fifth film I watched was a rewatch, and that was Pinocchio. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I must have been doing like, because Disney Plus have got that Disney Through the Decades thing, and I must have gone back to the beginning and been like, we'll just watch all the feature films in order. So I have Pinocchio. Pinocchio's an alright film. I don't love it. I think it's very disjointed, but considering when it was made, I think it was made in the 40s. So like, it makes sense for a 40s era film, but it's still not one of my favorites. Sixth film that I watched was Fantasia, and I think this is the first time I've ever seen Fantasia. I know I've seen Fantasia 2000, but this might be the first time I've ever seen Fantasia before. So I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Like, I really enjoyed the music, but I didn't love the animations, and some of them were really dark. I did enjoy the Mickey one though, with his sorcerer stuff, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, that's how I look when I procrastinate and when I take the easy way out, so that's a fun time. Seventh movie that I watched was The Reluctant Dragon, which I give 3 out of 5 stars. Now, The Reluctant Dragon was a really interesting film. So it's a half animated, half live action film, and it's kind of like a scripted documentary, sort of. So it follows this guy who he tries to get Walt Disney to pick up his story and to make this story about the Reluctant Dragon. And so he goes to Disney Studios, and then he gets taken through to all these different rooms, so we get to see different things. We get to see the storyboarding, we get to see Foley, we get to see sound recording, we get to see the animation, Technicolor, like all these really cool things. And then Walt Disney himself is in the film, and it was a really interesting, unique movie that I really did enjoy. Eighth movie that I watched this month was Now You See Me 2. It was a rewatch. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoy Now You See Me 2. I think it's great. I don't think it's better than the first one, but I think the way they explain things in this one is a lot more fun, and the final trick that they do is fantastic. Plus the card scene when they're trying to get the chip out of that fancy place, that is incredible and so well done. So I really do enjoy that film. Ninth movie that I watched was another rewatch, that was Jumanji, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I was just scrolling through, it must have been Netflix, and I was just like, when was Jumanji added to Netflix? I have to watch this immediately. So I did, and it's just such a fun film. It's such a simple concept, but it's done so well. The entire cast is great, the entire film is amazing, and I really did enjoy rewatching it. 10th movie I watched was another rewatch, and that was Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I've not seen this film in years, but it was on Disney Plus, and I just needed to watch something really cheesy, and it was the perfect film. It's utterly ridiculous, but I love it. I think it's great. It's funny. It's not one of those films, I'm not going to be able to watch that again for a couple of years now, but when I do finally go back to it, it'll be like a, oh yeah, kind of moment. So I enjoyed it. And the 11th film that I watched this month was Enola Holmes, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Y'all, Enola Holmes was everything I wanted it to be and more. It was so unbelievably clever. The entire cast was brilliant. The whole thing was perfectly cast. The plot was fantastic, and the way they broke the fourth wall and had Enola constantly talking to the audience, and just even sometimes she would just look at us and give us the funniest expressions. It was brilliant. And I know breaking the fourth wall is something really difficult to pull off in films normally, but I think they did it really, really well. Millie just has this charisma that she's able to look at you and you're like, oh, Enola, what are you thinking? So it was done really, really well. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know it's based on a book series. There are like another 5 books, so I'm really, really hoping that we get sequels because the film was phenomenal. And there we go. Those are all the movies and TV shows that I watched in the month of September. There were a lot of them. Now, coming into October, movie-wise, I'm hoping to watch some scary movies. And by scary movies, I mean Jenna-appropriate scary movies. But also we will be pulling a couple of shows out of the tin. I am thinking I might only pull one show out of the tin this month, just because I am already watching Clone Wars that I really do want to finish by the end of this month. So I'm just going to take that as like my second show, I guess. So let's get the tin down. Funnily enough, Star Wars Clone Wars is definitely in this tin. Here we go. Go down to the bottom. Make sure we only get one. Ooh, what is this? So I picked out the Borgias. I really should have written on here where I could watch these shows because I don't even know what that is. The second I saw what it was, I was like, that's a Stan show. Okay. Conspiring with his ruthless sons, Cesar and Juan, and poisonously seductive daughter Lucrezia, the charismatic Rodrigo Borgias' reign as Pope Alexander VI embroils the Catholic Church and all of Europe in scandal. And it stars Jeremy Irons, which is kind of cool. Well, there's only 9 episodes in the first season, so that's something. Okay, well that's gonna be an interesting show then, isn't it? Looks like it's, yeah, all about the Catholic Church. Oh, I don't know how to say the name. Led by Patriarch Rodrigo are a family of outsiders from Spain who try to take over control of Renaissance-era Italy. Through the use of bribery, extortion, and torture, Rodrigo rises up the ranks to become Pope. 2 of Rodrigo's children are used as pawns by being married off to members of rival families at a young age. Fenosa, Rodrigo's longtime mistress and mother of his children, and Julia Farnese battle for the elder Borgias' affections. The story of the Borgias has inspired such works as Machiavelli's political treatise The Prince and Mario Puzo's The Godfather. Oh, it's definitely got some people in the cast that I recognize. Well, that's going to be an interesting show to watch, isn't it? Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section below what you watched in September because I would absolutely love to know. If you like this video, be sure to give it a huge thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. Stay random. Bye.